Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Atlantic Bushcraft Adventures, episode 325. And tonight we're touching an old topic we talked about a while ago, but it's a nice time of year. I've had questions about it, so why not? How about some activities you can do in the woods with kids to keep them interested? Because the way this came up to me, Ben, and Ben, I shot this idea to him not long ago. He's flying off the cuff here, but he has family and kids as well as I do, so I'm sure he's very insightful on this topic. But the way this came up was literally in passing. Somebody's like, my kids do not enjoy going out in the woods. Do you have any ideas? And much like what we talked about in the past, we had Melissa on last time to talk about this, and she gave some really good educational ideas and things like that, but I figured we could just refresh everybody's memory and kind of give them some ideas on what we do with our kids to get them out there in the woods, and make them, well, not maybe make them, but that allows them to enjoy it.
Yeah.
And we have joined us in the comments there. We got Steve, the Drifting Spore, and Eric. Howdy, folks. If you guys have some insight, please feel free to share it. And I think the biggest thing I wanted to cover here today is how do we make it fun and interesting? Because it can be fun, interesting, and educational. I've been on a lot of excursions where kids have gone out in the woods and they don't necessarily like the idea of going out, is the first thing I want to talk about here. I find, especially with my own daughter, it's the idea of doing something she dislikes more than the actual activity. If you can convince them to get there, 9 times out of 10, at least in my instance, they have fun. Am I not wrong, Ben, or am I not right?
No, I think you're spot on. I've often called it the inertia. People tend to want to stay where they're to, and once you get them moving and you get them somewhere else, they're like, fine, it's fine, I'm moving now. But it's that first few steps that's the hardest. So getting them on the road, getting them moving, getting them into the woods. Once they're there, they're usually fine.
And for me, and I don't know if it's the same with your kids, the biggest challenge I have is the unplug factor. Most young kids I've noticed coming up nowadays, they're very ingrained into technology, and I don't want to say dependent. I don't want to go down that road, but they're very ingrained into technology. It's very readily available at schools. Most schools now, they end up giving them tablets or Chromebooks or stuff like that. It's a part of the education, and rightfully so. I mean, technology is everywhere. If you don't know it, you kind of get left behind. But at the same time, the problem with that is once you are so familiar with it and so ingrained into it, sometimes it is more difficult to take a step back away from it. I'm sorry, man. I'm trying to leave it alone.
So the reason he's laughing is I managed to get some sunscreen in my eye, and it's just driving my eye nuts. But that's okay.
I can see him there trying to play it cool, and he's just like, oh, nonchalantly rubbing it. And I can tell it's just driving you nuts.
Oh, man, it's sore. Yeah.
But yeah, the disconnect is the hard part. What about you? Do you find that's the hard part, or?
It can be, but there's ways to incorporate the technology into it. One of the things that we've done in the past is like plant and mushroom identification, or bird identification. I recently downloaded Merlin, and you can turn it on, record, and it'll tell you what birds it can hear.
Oh,
so
there's
a lot of apps and programs out there that you can incorporate the technology that the kids are into the activities that they're doing out there, right? So you can also tell them, like, try to get a picture of the following things. Kind of a play on a scavenger hunt where you don't actually have to pick anything up. So, get a pine cone, get a certain type of tree, get a river, get a list of items that they have to get pictures of. So they can take their phone and they can run and they're clicking pictures. And kids really seem to enjoy that. Like operating a camera, getting photos of things. They can, it's something that they can incorporate into it. So maybe sometimes the solution isn't to get rid of the technology, but incorporate it into the event.
And I was going to say, following up to that, something that I've recently done, and seeing we're already down this path, I'll jump on it, is with Lily. If there is data somewhere, I'll, not everywhere we go there has data, but if there is data in the area that we're in, a lot of times I'll give her my phone and turn on that plant identification app.
Yeah.
The name of it escapes my head right now, but I have it on my phone, and you just take a picture of something and it tells you what it is. And she likes to take pictures of things anyway, and then she can find out about the plant, and I work with her, and we learn together, and it's a great activity for the two of us to share while we're out there too, because it's really fun if you can incorporate a whole family setting into it. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's times when you just want to get your kids something and let them go play. Danger
Yeah.
play and all that good stuff. It is a thing. It's healthy and all that, but it's also nice to have that kind of group functionality out there too. And I think kids need and enjoy that to a certain degree. And depending on the age of your kids, and I am talking like younger kids, because as the kids get older, it's going to be a little harder to be in tune with them. They start getting their own personalities and, dare I say, attitudes, which could have absolutely nothing to do with the woods. It may just be that day they feel like they just hate the world. And I remember going through, or I do remember going through that stage with Christiane. And it's kind of hit and miss with that.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? I don't have suggestions there for you. That is a lot of hormonal and independent things coming together where sometimes they just don't want to deal with their parents. But for the sake of this, the scope of this, I'm talking like 13 years and younger. Not that some of it won't apply to older, but you may have to tweak it a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So that's one thing, like, incorporate the technology in, and that may be the solution for some of the kids. The other thing is shelter building, and that's one that I find kids can get a real blast out of. Give them a few sticks, give them a tarp, give them a piece of plastic, give them something, and let them go. And you'll be amazed what they'll build them. They'll have hours of fun, and even if it's the worst shelter you've ever seen, it's still a world of fun for them. And they build their own little world, and they start playing with it.
But they also learn a lot of good base skills, even with a failed shelter. They learn what works. How do two pieces of wood go together where you can actually hold a little bit of load on it? Because I'm sure you remember as a kid, you went out in the wood and built forts. And you realize that if a tree leaned a certain way on another tree and then you put weight on it, the whole thing crumbles down. But if you take a forked stick and put to the end of that, you can put there is some problem solving that goes on with this that will set the base layer of fundamentals for if they do want to develop this into something like more bushcrafting oriented, much like yourself and myself get into, and maybe they don't. Maybe it's just skills they want to sit in the back of their mind, but they learn. They build that base foundation. And I think that is fundamental for being out there in the woods, honestly. iNaturalist. Thank you very much, Steve. That's exactly it. Okay, I'm flipping back and forth through pages here. So shelter building, and on that, to a degree, depending on the age of your kids, sometimes you can get into fire building, or at least getting them to assist in fire building. You may not want to give them a Bic lighter and send them out in the woods. I'm not saying that's what you should do. But when you do make your campfire or whatever there, maybe you get the stuff together, they help gather some of the firewood. But don't just make them say, hey, you gotta go get firewood. Make it somewhat fun. Hey, we gotta go find some tinder, so we need to find something that's light and fluffy and flammable. You think you can do that?
Yeah.
All right, let's go find something. Because honestly, you know yourself, Ben, even as adults, well, actually, I do enjoy going to get firewood, but a lot of adults, they don't enjoy just going to get the firewood. That's always the camp labor, you know what I mean? Some people do enjoy it, but the majority, they tend to not be interested in the pure physical labor activities. And if you can add a little excitement to that, that'll be great too. Or you can get them into, once again, depending on the age of your child, if they're starting to get their knife skills, you could start with some feather sticks, or splitting wood, or batoning wood. Like, once again, you don't have to send your child out individually to go do these things. Stay with them. Help nurture those skills. Once again, build that base set of skills that they themselves can build upon.
Yeah. I mean, weenie sticks was one of the first things we got taught to do. The roasting sticks. Go out, find a small alder or a willow or something that's straight and flexible that can hold enough weight to hold your wiener without it falling off. And we got pretty good pretty quick at that. Like now I can flick one out in a matter of seconds. And so that's an easy one. later on, you can progress to things like the whistle. Remember, I showed you how to do the whistle. You absolutely love that now, right?
I show everybody how to do the whistle now because it was a skill I had as a kid. I remembered seeing it, completely forgot it until you showed it to me again. And then once I learned it again, I was like, okay, I got to keep this. So every year I make one just to try and keep the skill up. But now Lily has a kick at playing with these whistles. Excuse me. Yeah, Steve, the Pictou County Forest School, they do amazing things. Believe it or not, Lily's been to it a couple times. The schools locally all usually take turns going out to it from time to time. And Mel's actually worked with them a little bit as well, with some of the educational parts of it, I think. And once upon a time, believe it or not, when Ben was still in Nova Scotia, we might have actually been reached out to do some stuff with that. But then it kind of fell apart. But that's another story.
I think COVID had something to do with that.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
I was going to say there was a lot of stuff that fell down there. But anywho, you know what is another fun activity, once again, for younger kids? Just dirt play. Literally. This you can build this onto shelter building or however you want, or pottery or whatever, but just let them go play in the mud. Yeah, hey, we're going to make some pinch bowls out of this clay. Or, yeah, you can take this mud, and if we put it over this moss while it's leaning on these trees, you can see how it makes a nice solid outside to a shelter. We can fill in the gaps, and now wind can't get in. Kids love to play in mud, and if you're actively telling them, grab a handful of mud and do something with it, a lot of younger kids, at least, they're going to jump to that.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, I mean, you give them a shovel and a bucket, and kids will have fun for hours, right? So that's a really good one. Recently, actually, me and my wife did this. We did, a couple of days ago, we tried panning for gold. And that's real easy. All you need is a gold pan and any moving body of water, honestly. Like, you can get a bit of sand, bit of dirt up. You can, shift through it and see what you can find. You may find gemstones or little bits of gold or stuff, but I mean, my kids would sort rocks for days if you let them. Like, find all the blue ones, find all the red ones, find this, find that. Get ones that are certain shape. Skipping rocks, all that stuff is really fun. But yeah, just rocks themselves. Kids will play with that for hours.
So Jacob DeFord here says, I like to bring some binoculars for the kids to practice with. That's another awesome skill that's highly underrated because, believe it or not everybody knows how to use a pair of binoculars. A lot of them don't understand. They have the middle adjustment and then the right eye adjustment. You know what I mean? They always just adjust the middle and be like, one eye's always blurry. But if nobody ever taught you or told you, it's not necessarily intuitive. Not only that, they can learn about how the binoculars work and how the magnification numbers correlate to how far they can see, or they can use it in conjunction with bird watching or something like that. Binoculars are great fun. Lily has always had a set of binoculars, and she loves to grab them and just stare at stuff. Of course, caveat going with this, depending on your child's age, once again, don't let them stare at the sun with a pair of binoculars. Obviously, that's not a great idea. So perhaps some supervision is required on that one. But once again, up to you. What was I thinking here? I had something else. Oh, yeah. Believe it or not, an activity that I really enjoyed as a kid was ropes and knots. And learning how to do fun ones. And what I mean by fun ones is you can do some trick knots. You know what I mean? Like a figure eight shoot through where you spin the rope and you throw it and it makes a perfect figure eight. Like, it's flashy and fancy, serves no real purpose, but it does show the fundamentals of how to do a figure eight. Or a single-handed bowline rescue knot. It's a neat one to pull out, and kids are always like, oh, how'd you make a knot with it around your body with one hand? And these are things you can do that it kind of looks like magic, but it's not really magic. Once again, it's going to depend. A 13-year-old's probably going to pick up on it pretty fast and be like, eh. But a 5-year-old, they still get a kick out of the figure eight shoot through.
Yeah.
Or a bow and whip knot, which I'm a little rusty on now, but basically hold the two strands and you flick the tag end down and around and give it a pull and it'll make a bowline. Like, I learned a couple of them, and I used to teach these at the fire department for junior members. Because even up to 16, some of these people still get a kick out of these things. And it was that draw, that little bit of interest, you know what I mean? Like, oh, that's kind of neat. All you need is that first crack in that, I don't want to armor. And you can usually open that right up into some some sort of curiosity. And once you get that initial curiosity, you can figure out where to go from there.
Yeah. And if you can show them why a knot might be useful to them, like a lot of times people's resistance to learn is, why do I want to learn this? I'm never going to use it. So, like with boating, as soon as you get off a boat, you need to secure the boat. So if you have a knot that's quick and simple that secures the boat to a tree or a rock or something, then okay, they know they need that now. Or my kids, they got into climbing. You have to use this rope tie method to use the belay. And so, they learned that. I think if they didn't have to do that, they would never have learned those knots. But because it was important for the exercise they were planning on doing, they picked up on it.
Funny enough, out of all the bushcrafting skills I have, the two I use the most in my everyday life be knot tying and fire making. Fire making only because I have a wood stove, and I use that nonstop. But knot tying, I use all the time. I have a truck. If I want to tie a tarp down, I use knots. If I'm just packing something up to move it around the house, I use knots. If I want to bring a whole bunch of firewood in and I want to make a hang carry or something with it, I use ropes and knots. It tends to be the skill I use most of all, which is really odd, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, no, knots are... I mean, I like knots. They come in very handy. And the more you learn, the better they get. Another one you should have mentioned when we were talking about technology, geocaching.
Absolutely. Amazing skill that allows a child to develop their skills with GPS, understand the basics of navigating, as well as have a fun scavenger hunt at the end of it. Like, a lot of these geocaches, there are micro caches and stuff like that where you just sign your name and go on. If anybody's used to geocaching, they'll know what I mean. But there's also larger caches where it's kind of the take something, leave something mentality. And I know Melissa and I, we got into it really big when we were younger. And when I say younger, I mean like in our 20s, which I guess is 20 years ago. Wow, time flies. Anyway, now that Lily's getting older, I'm curious to see if she would have the same interest in it, because I would love to get back out there and start it again.
We've gotten back and forth into it. We're kind of off it again now, but geocaching is fun, and it's something we bring up every now and then. We got so far into it at one point, we had a stamp done up. We had a bag that we would take. We had the GPS we like to use. I remember at one point we started, we had to put them all on paper, and then later on you could download them right to your GPS. Now you can do it all on your phone really easy. So it's gotten infinitely easier to do. And the cache of ones you can find now is just amazing. It was pretty good years ago, but it's just amazing now.
Oh man, I just went on geocaching.net or whatever it was that, and I just looked at the geocaches around here. And when we were first into it, there was about 50 around us within, like a 50-kilometer radius. Now it's hundreds. Like, there seems to be so many out there now.
Yeah. So, that's a really good one because it gives the kids something to do, right? When you're getting out and they're like, okay, there's 12 geocaches in this area. Let's see if we can get all 12 or see if we can get half of them. And you can shoot a day really quick with that. And that gets them in the woods walking. And that's when you can point out other things like, oh, look, there's some trees. Do you know what any of these are? Or look, there's blueberries and raspberries. Do you want to pick some? And so you can do other things. And it's just an excuse to get going. And it's also, they're saying, well, what are we going to do when we get there? Well, there's 12 geocaches. There's 10 geocaches close by. They're like, okay, so I have something to do. Yep, you'll have something to do.
Going along with that hand in hand is you can just do other navigational activities too. Something I used to like to do with some of the other kids around here was just trail marking, trail finding. As you're walking through the woods, just start to point out like game trails. Oh, hey, that's a deer trail over there. You can tell by this and you can see the deer hooves. Or you might see a smaller trail. Oh, that's a rabbit trail. Where do you think that goes? That just shot an instant terrible thing to my mind. You ever hear the smart pills joke?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. I'm not going to include that here, but those who know. But yeah, or just simply take some flagging tape. And as long as it's an area that you're fairly familiar with, let your child do some navigating. Get them to take a bearing with a compass, GPS, whatever. Let them find a spot and just start flagging a trail. Let them go. Let them learn. I know I have seen good success with that. That was an activity. I don't know if Mel did that at the Nova Scotia Bushcraft Gathering or not, but I know I've done that at 4-H clubs and things like that, and I had really good success with it. Especially if you have like a prize or something at the end of it. If you have a couple kids, it's a great thing like that. You know what is real fun? And once again, it's going to vary on kids. I find this to be enjoyable. Not everybody does. But it's like, do you know like the old bark etchings where you get like the black crayon, put the paper over it, and you rubbings, I guess is what they're called, not etchings. And you can do that of different trees and label them. Help them identify the trees, and here's the bark, and get a leaf with it, and they can make a little scrapbook or a bushcrafting journal of what they've seen and what they've learned. Like, oh yeah, this is the bark of a spruce tree. Or, that might be a little more difficult. Let's try, this is the bark off a sugar maple tree, and here's the leaf, and here's a bud, and you know what I mean? It can all kind of go together with it, and they can make their own simplified identification book for future knowledge. I mean, all paths start with a step, and that's the first step into getting one of these, like this stuff you see back here, tree identification books and edible plants in Nova Scotia. Like, I didn't start there. I started with basic things like just the trees of Nova Scotia. That's it. Just trees in Nova Scotia. Nice and simple. And now I have like trees in North America back there and things that I'll never see in my lifetime, but I know how to identify them somehow.
Yeah. I just picked up another one as a medical and edible plants of Western Canada because it was at a site we went to this week. My wife pointed out something that we did this week. The last park we were in, they had a storybook trail. And so there was a QR code right at the beginning of the trail, and you scanned it. And then each time you got to a sign, you were supposed to play the next message. And it told you a little bit about the area. So it was a self-guided tour. And a lot of parks have things like this set up. Like maybe not exactly that. They have a pamphlet or they may have guided tours. But a lot of them tell you some really interesting things. And honestly, I didn't have high hopes for this park. I was just happy to have a spot that was, you know, the sleep for that night because we traveled quite a ways. And we got up the next morning and I said, well, there's this trail. Let's check it out. And I think we hit like 5 different types of environment. We were walking along eskers. We were going along wetlands, pine forests, meadows. There was a whole bunch of stuff to see and do. And there was a lake. There was waterfront, like shoreline. There was so much to see and to learn about. So, you know, if nothing else, check out like your local provincial parks, national parks. They usually have so many events and stuff on. They really get kids into it. And I know Keji had the canoe building a few years ago. That was kind of cool. They have night walks where you can do bats, things like that. We did some of this at Shuby Wildlife Park too.
Mm-hmm. I know there was a nighttime tour at the Shuby Wildlife Park where you get to see a lot of the nocturnal animals that didn't really come out during the day. I had one last thing, and it was in my mind, and now it's gone. It couldn't have been that interesting, apparently.
Was it canoeing and kayaking? Because kids love that.
I was going to say, you said boating, and that perked my to mention it, but that wasn't what I was thinking. But anyway, see, we're on that. We're at 23 minutes. Boating is an awesome thing for everybody. So bare minimum, most kids do enjoy being out on a boat. Most kids enjoy water, I find. You know what I mean? They like to play in water. They like to throw rocks in water. They like to float on water. They like to swim in water. Water seems to be a big draw. And I mean, not just kids. I'm an adult and I love to throw rocks in the water, go swimming in the water, go floating on the water. I mean, it stays with you.
Yeah. No, and fishing. Fishing is a really good one too. There's other minor hunting. Like we used to do snaring growing up. So there's a lot you can do with that. You know, any type of gathering of food, especially if you can involve them in the full process so that at the end they end up with a meal that they made, they collected the ingredients to, and you know, they made the fire, like they can see the whole process through. It brings a sense of accomplishment that you just don't get when you run to the grocery store and buy the same ingredients, right?
No, absolutely.
So a bottle of jam that you made from the berries you picked, cooked over a fire that you made, is way better, 100 times than one that you went to the store and did on a stove and you dropped some, prepackaged sugar and pectin in it. It's not the same. It just isn't, right? It's good.
I agree.
It's great.
And that's actually the thing I was trying to remember. It was food.
Food.
Excuse me. And yeah, you can either do it like Ben said, gathering and stuff like that, or if that's not your thing and you're not into wild edibles yourself, take your kid to the store and say, hey, we're going to be cooking on an open fire tonight, providing you're allowed to have fires in your area. What would you like to try and cook over that fire? And I mean, as a parent, you kind of have to be prepared for this too, because I've gotten some very interesting things I've had to try and cook over the fire. But it's kind of a fun challenge on both sides. And the kids generally are excited for that. And Lily has even tried things she doesn't eat normally after it's been cooked on a fire. You know what I mean? Because once again, got to see the process. Oh, here it is from package to plate. But she was involved.
Yeah. Yeah. I've cooked some amazing meals in the woods. And, sometimes it's just the amount of effort you're willing to put into it. And you just have to think a little differently. But there's not much you can't cook outside over an open fire.
Nope. Cooked a whole lobster. A live lobster, by the way. So we had to go through dispatching it and cooking it. And it was fun. It was a learning experience. I'd never cooked a lobster on an open flame. I didn't boil the water. It got cold cooked. And it came out really tasty, honestly.
Wow. I mean, I've made ovens with tin foil and coal and cooked breads and stuff like that. We've tried the Dutch oven method. Not the dirty one you guys are thinking of, the actual...
The real Dutch oven, the cast iron pot that actually... Yeah, I know what you meant, Ben. Everybody else, you get your dirty minds out of the blankets.
But yeah, I mean, all those things. Like, we've cooked pies and desserts and made some really cool meals out there. And it really does make it more enjoyable if the kids can be involved. Because the thing is, a lot of times, they just feel left out. So if you can find something they can be involved in, they get much more invested into it.
And I think that's a real good point to end this off with. Most kids do not feel involved when they get out in the woods. They feel like they're there just as being outside. Like the same thing they would do to play in the backyard at home. You have to try and change it up. Change the flavor of the activity. Get them more involved. Get them doing things they wouldn't normally do in ways they normally wouldn't think about. That's how to, I don't want to say rope them in, but that's how to rope them in. That's how to make them excited. If it's the same stuff they can do by running around the woods behind the house, there's not really a lot of excitement for them to come out to it. But if you can change that up and be like, okay, we're going to, one, we're going to do some fun things, and two, we're going to learn some stuff along the way, they tend to gravitate it towards a little more. At least they seem to enjoy it more, in my experience.
Agreed.
And I think that's a good spot to end here for tonight. We're 28 minutes in, and it does look like you were going blind in your eye, Ben. So
I tell you,
you've been a trooper,
better.
Man. You've been holding out this whole time, 30-plus minutes, because you talked to me before we had this. And, yeah. Anyway, just before we finish up, what tent do you got back there, Ben, just so the people know?
That is the One Fires. Yeah, the One Fires hot tent. Obviously, I don't have the stove in it. There's absolutely no need of that right now.
I was going to say, it doesn't look cold.
But I've used it a few times this year. It's pretty lightweight, pretty small. I've been able to take it on the motorcycle. Now we got the SUV this trip. So we're testing out a few pieces of gear. We're testing out some fly repellent systems, and boy, did we need it on a couple of these sites. We're testing out our electronic cooler, and solar generator, and that's working out really good. So we got some stuff we're testing out this week. We've been out all week, and we'll probably be out till Friday, and yeah. So
awesome. So maybe sometime in the next few weeks we can have an episode where we talk about some of your findings for some of that stuff that you were testing out there. Might be fun for people. I know I would be interested, so we might as well get everybody involved.
Yeah. And camping with a dog. Dog's been with us all week, so there's more stuff that we've learned about that.
You mean your small horse that barks?
Small horse that barks? He's not a horse. He's a small, mid-sized dog. but he has a loud bark. But this is his first trip. This is the first time he's done any of this. So he's learning some new things, and we're learning with him. We got lots of experience with dogs, but yeah, it's kind of like taking a little boy camping. He loves the sand. He loves to run around. He loves to get in trouble, but he's pretty good. So.
Well, I think we'll have a talk about that at another time, and I'm kind of looking forward to hearing all about your adventures, including the dog, but maybe some of that we'll keep offline.
Yeah.
All right. All right, folks. Thanks for everybody that joined us there in the comments. We got Steve, Eric, Jacob. Thanks again, guys, for joining us here. It's always a pleasure to get your input and stuff there, and we'll be talking to everybody else next week. Have a good night, everybody.
Night all.